Hindi ba 9 ang kailangan?
9. Yeah,
Yeah,
9.
9. Yeah.
I mean to block the trial, they need
Back lang. Exactly,
13.
yun nga. They don't have
Yeah,
the numbers. Baka
they
11
don't
lang
have,
daw
yeah,
maximum yung
11 lang sila to pass that resolution of Bato. They need 13.
but I call it the Tokang impeachment resolution, and I mean it in the dark, like satirical way. Like talagang batiyan impeachment gusto ni Tokang. I mean, I found it always weird na Bato will push for this. Considering justice, remember when he was the PNP chief, sabi niya, kung wala ka naman ginagawang mali, wala kang dapat ikakatakot sa batas, di ba? I would say exactly the same thing. If Sara has not done anything wrong, kung mambo jumbo lang yung Quadcom and tambalos-los moves lang nangyari sa lower house, then walang dapat ikakatakot si Sara unless guilty siya. Like, kaya yung mga tao sabi na baka naman guilty talaga eh. Kaya narita. Do you think Justice they're really scared that the trial, no matter which form it takes, could be damaging enough to Sara Duterte?
Yes, I think even if he is acquitted, uh, the evidence that will come out could be damaging enough to destroy her. No, I think that's what they're afraid of now.
So that's why they wanted to nip it in the bud. But thanks to Bato, no, when he just unabashedly and brazenly said he's going for a resolution to nip it in the bud, I thought he did a service actually to the law. Kasi lalong nagalit ang tao na parang
Yeah,
bakit
everybody
pala?
came out.
I think that
Everybody
really
came
helped.
out with statements. Ang
Exactly,
dami.
exactly. Everyone except mag-usapan na. Ayan naman, alam ng tao what I'm talking about. Kasi si Kiko meron na. Davao, Ateneo de Davao, Xavier University, all the great universities in Davao have made a statement. Practically every progressive, liberal, even, Mindanao-based great institutions have made the statements. So I want to go back to this Justice Carpio. So let's go through this. Obviously, Bato is a non-entity when it comes to legal analysis. So let's talk about the legal part. Um, One is this. I call him the former Ronald Llamas of Digong. I'm talking about Triple Masters Tolentino, right? Like dating Digong, then BBM, and then ngayon parang iba na naman ang inip ng hangin. Ano yung sinasabi ni Tolentino na kung hindi ito mag-pass on sa 20th Congress, basically it's considered as null and void and dismissed. Is there a jurisprudential basis to that?
There is none. Ang ang ano niya, his assumption is that the impeachment cannot cross over. Sabi niya, if you cannot finish it in this Congress, you cannot continue it in the next Congress. But that's not what the practice in UK. The impeachment crosses over from one parliament to the next. And in the US, which copied the UK impeachment process, that happens also. The impeachment crosses over to the next Congress. Like si Bill Clinton, he was impeached by the House of Representatives of the 105th US Congress, and he was tried by the Senate of the 106th US Congress. And that has been the practice ever since. So we copied the impeachment process from the US, and that should be the case. And in fact, there is an additional provision in the Constitution, in the present 1987 Constitution. It says public officials and employees shall be accountable at all times to the people. So, accountable at all times. You cannot use the legislative calendar to quash the impeachment. You cannot say it's only up to the end of the legislative calendar. Hindi pwede yan because the Constitution is very clear. At all times. That's why it strengthens the crossover practice in the US and in the UK.
Um, Justice, going back to this, well, Chizo Escudero has been. We'll talk about Chiz a bit more. Like from a political style, I think he's like the most hated politician now, which I think is unfair because nakita natin he's not even the real Team Piatos. Like there are even worse things behind the scenes. But going back to this, Jesus Cordero is citing the US also precedents by saying, in the US, nung na-convene lang yung buong Senado as a plenary, dun lang sila pwede mag-proceed sa trial. And then his second argument is, legislative priorities dumagdag during election period. Nakausap na niya si BBM na-realize, well, obviously nakita natin dun sa Anthony Tabera ng podcast na na-realize niya pala niya, bigla na kailangan pala niya ayusin yung economy. So biglang yung excuse is actually to move it from June to by more than a week, because kailangan daw na bigyan ng priorities mga yan. This is where, interestingly, if si Tolentino went from ganyan, 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 si Coco Pimentel may have finally his moment of redemption, right? He's the most eloquent argument, basically, he's the most eloquent source of arguments against this whole Chis Escudero and also the Tim Piatos arguments. Basically, ang point ni Coco Pimentel, from my understanding, is first, why are we even looking at the US as a kind of a parang categorical inspiration or jurisprudential precedents? And second, our own Senate rules say, although hindi ko rin nahanap yung sinasabi niya number 10 or 12, say that pag meron kang legislative agenda and meron kang trial, unahin mo yung trial, the trial tracks precedence, because ayaw mo rin nakalutang yung person who would be subject of impeachment, because kung innocent tong tao na to, gusto mo matapos na yung issue para mag-move on na siya dun sa trabaho niya. Which makes perfect logical sense to me. What is your legal analysis of the Coco Pimentel intervention?
Well, I tried to look for that provision. What I found was because every year, every Senate rather, after every 6 years, the Senate adopts its own impeachment rules. No, every when there's a new Congress, and during the time of Coco Pimentel, it says there in the rules that at 2 p.m., if there is an impeachment, the legislative work will end and they will conduct the impeachment, the trial. So, in a sense, the impeachment prevails over legislative work, but starting at 2 p.m. lang. In the morning, they do the legislative work. That's what I found out. But uh, the well, we copied our impeachment process from the U.S. And normally, if you copy it, that serves as a guide. No? And but there is
Guide,
another.
but not yeah,
Yeah,
but not absolute
yeah,
source.
we don't have to absolutely. It has persuasive effect. That's what it has persuasive force. It's not binding, but it has persuasive force, and we normally follow it if it has persuasive force. No, so but there is an additional provision in the new constitution that says public officials and employees shall at all times be accountable to the people at all times. So the legislative calendar cannot extinguish accountability just because the legislative calendar says the session will end June 11 or June 12. No, it cannot extinguish accountability of impeachable officers because they are not only uh, impeachable officers are accountable at all times to the people, all public officials are accountable at all times to the people. So, uh, well, the issue of forthwith is already in the Supreme Court, and I hope the Supreme Court will rule on that. And if assuming or we're just speculating if the Senate majority will dismiss this under the theory of functionally dismissed, everybody will go to the Supreme Court to question it, and there will be a ruling on this.
Absolutely. Justice, obviously, there are a lot of, so now let's do a bit of Ronald Llamas here. Like there are a lot of political factors at play here. Some would say, and I think we had Senator Trillanes on this show earlier this year who said, in fairness naman to Jesus Cudero, he's just trying to survive because sobrang, di ba? Like a few votes move, hindi na siya Senate President. And the last thing he wants to do happen is to be fired as Senate President even before the end of basically his term or his presumed term. But there's another interesting argument, or some would say Marites, recently that came out, and I was talking to some interesting, some informed folks, and they're saying, it looks like Cheese is hoping that he could still become the Senate president. And some would even say meron daw angulo na even si BBM daw behind the scenes is encouraging Cheese to do cheesy things, which is like to say this, to say that, basically. Kasi medyo worried daw, allegedly even si BBM, na the impeachment will end in embarrassment, or if anything, it could, if Sara comes out of this alive, that will be enough for her to launch a kind of a vengeance campaign a la Donald Trump. Um, Ikaw, just what is your understanding here? Did Cheese overplay his hand? Because yung excuse na ng may elections, medyo nakalusot siya doon. Pero for him to make another excuse to delay it again na almost mag-June 12 na at mag-holidays na tapos, I think he really overplayed his hand there, no? And I want to figure out what on earth really pushed him to that. Is it fear? Is it greed? Is it just folly and ambition?
Well, we are speculating here, no? But
This is
I
the
think it has
Ronald
to do.
Llamas part, Justice. So it's okay. We can have the caveat.
Yeah, yeah. That's the caveat. But I think it has to do with the Senate presidency. You're right. No, you need the votes of the Duterte bloc, and so you try to navigate it by trying to accommodate everybody. That's the work of a presiding officer. You try to please everybody. Uh, I think that's the reason for this.
So basically more survival, right? He's just trying to
Yeah, it's
keep his head above the water, yeah.
yeah, it's basically it's the internal politics in the Senate that's affecting this.
Justice, are you worried na yung Senado ay medyo magulo in a sense that parang since, especially after the Migzubiri incident, people are worried na Senate doesn't have a center of gravity. I mean, it's not like the Senate was perfect. We'll discuss the impeachment case of ERAP and also Justice Corona, Chief Justice Corona shortly. But even by historical standards, mukhang ito yung medyo magulo yung yung mga internal alignments at saka yung stability of leadership. Kaya again, not to excuse Jesus Codero, but in fairness, I think Jesus is trying to survive lang dahil ang gulo nung internal alignments. Having said that, how do you see Tito Soto and all positioning? Do you think they want to be the Senate president? And I know again, maybe this is again too Ronald Llamas for your taste, Justice Carpio, but do you think maybe cheese has expired basically the time for another product to take over or maybe go back? Because when Tito Soto was in charge, there was some stability. I'm not a fan of the guy, but
Yeah,
he protected Senator Trillanes from the whole Duterte amnesty shenanigan. I mean, if, internal, I talked to many senators. They were saying he's very collegial, very a man of parliamentary politics, mga ganon. Again, I know I'm saying Tito Soto, people raise their eyebrows, but that's the reality inside, at least from history.
yeah. Well, I think there are three people have more or less announced that they're running. It's Cheese, it's Tito Soto, and Amy because she announced it. So, well,
Just to
those
be
are the
clear, sorry,
three.
let's just eliminate the joke one. Let's talk about two very shortly. Si Amy trying to be the Senate President is like yung kulelat sa classroom gusto maging class president. Di parang kung sino pa yung kulelat. Yung pa, di ako mag-class president, di ba? Parang ganun ka ridiculous yung kanyang bid for presidency, but hindi naman bawal mangarap. Sorry, Justice, go back.
Yeah, so there are three known contenders, and of course the, there are blocks in the Senate, so uh, all of these are affecting the impeachment, no? But one thing is clear: there is a crossover, no matter what. I think if it's brought to the Supreme Court will say there will be a crossover because this is not legislative work. This is quasi judicial work, no? And there is that provision in the Constitution. I mean, because if you follow the theory of Senator Tolentino, you just run down the clock at the the calendar of the Senate of the Congress, and that's it. You get acquitted of any impeachment. Now, I think that's the bad, very bad development, and I don't think the Supreme Court will uphold that.
Okay, so Justice, I'll make the question a bit more pointed, no? You mentioned three contenders. One is obviously a joke, as we mentioned a while ago, but do you think that Cheese has abused his Senate presidency? Because the argument of Tito Sota is not even to, like every there are people even calling for him to be disbarred. Na parang point nila is he's abusing his prerogative as a Senate president to violate the constitutional duty of the Senate.
Well, she has taken a position, and he said it's up to the Supreme Court. Well, that's how constitutional issues are resolved. We all go to the Supreme Court. If it's because of disputes like this that we develop our jurisprudence, uh, but I think we still have time. I think the at the end of the day, the Supreme Court will say forthwith means you cannot during your recess, you have to conduct the trial because you're not doing any legislative work anymore. And also, there is a crossover. I mean, if you don't have a crossover, you're practically negating that provision in the Constitution that public officials are accountable at all times to the people. No? So I think we will end up with that. Uh, and the and the impeachment will continue. It will cross over, and this will be resolved uh, based on the evidence. Uh, well, of course, it's a political decision also, but as I said, uh, even if a person is acquitted, because there are two judges here. They're the formal judges, the senators, and also the people, because the people uh, will watch the proceedings. It's televised. They will see the evidence, and they will come to their own conclusion as to the guilt or innocence. And we have seen that in the Strada impeachment, where they tried to suppress the evidence, and the people really got mad. I mean, we had EDSA too, no? So, so it doesn't mean that if the Senate, the majority will acquit, that's it. Well, the people also will have their own opinion, have their own decision, and they will express that in the next elections.
Uh,
So,
I want to discuss that justice more later on the Corona and the Era Estrada precedents. That's very important. But going back to this, so basically you don't buy this argument. I have to exactly check, so I don't want to misquote, but yung parang press conference kanina or yung intervention ni Senator Rizon Torres the other day, parang some were giving an impression na kayang you can do a quick trial and get over it within this Congress. What you're saying, Justice, is mukhang malabo. Talagang this is gonna go to the next Congress, hence the relevance of me saying usapan din ito sino maging next Senate President or whether she's
yeah,
deserves to
well,
be or it can stick around.
I don't think it can be finished because remember the impeached official has 10 calendar days. So that's 10 calendar days. Plus the prosecutors have 5 calendar days to reply. So it's really that's already 15 days, and there will be gaps just to serve these summons. So it's practically impossible to finish this because the prosecution will ask for the production for will subpoena the bank records. That will again take time. So I think it's
Yeah.
really physically impossible to finish this before the end of the month. No.
Which is exactly where I come in, which is parang medyo ridiculous din yung ginawa nila Bato kasi parang they just enrage people. Alam naman talaga nila wala nang time to do this in 19th Congress and most likely this will be a question of the 20th Congress unless they're trying to intimidate the 20th Congress not to do something. But again, parang malabo yan eh. It's, if only the Tolentino argument made sense, the Bato argument could also make sense in a way, di ba? Na parang you intimidate other senators. 11 kami dito, marami kami, wag na kayo maghanash. But I want to ask another thing, Justice. What about the rules of the trial itself? Because I always say it's one thing for the trial to happen. It's another thing to make sure hindi ito Mickey Mouse trial. What would be a Mickey Mouse trial versus a real trial for you? No offense kay Mickey Mouse. I think people know. Kasi hindi naman maging kangaroo trial to dahil ang problema is the opposite of a kangaroo trial, di ba? Which is things are skewed in favor of the accused, hindi the other way around. Justice, are you worried or should we be worried na magkaroon ng Mickey Mouse trial? Meaning, the Team Piatos within Senate will try to water down the rules of the trial so much so na makalusot si Sara from any serious scrutiny or presentation of evidence.
Well, the crux of the matter here will be the subpoena of the bank records. If that is blocked by the majority, because under the rules, present rules, uh, the prosecution will ask for a subpoena for the bank records of the Duterte family with BPI. I mean, they've already said that. So I think the presiding officer can act on that on his own, or he can throw that motion to the Senate for votation. And that is equivalent to the envelope. That is equivalent to
Exactly.
opening the envelope.
Exactly.
So the Senate will vote whether to, I think Chis, what he will do is, because he has the option to throw that motion to the body, to the Senate body to vote. And that is the crucial matter. That is equivalent to the opening of the envelope.
Yeah, exactly. That's the end all be all of this, right? It all goes down to the money trail. Show me the
Yeah,
money trail, basically. Show me the money trail. So they will need what? 13 votes or more than 13 votes to
they need 13 votes. It has
yeah,
to
to
be a
block
majority.
the to make a Mickey Mouse trial, basically,
No,
right?
to block it, they need 13 votes.
Yeah. If they have 13 votes, then they'll make it a Mickey Mouse trial.
Yes.
Diba?
Then
So, syempre,
it will be like the envelope is not opened.
exactly. So basically, your plan A is no trial. Plan B is no real trial, right? So parang I'm just trying to anticipate ano yung strategies ng Team Piatos, di ba? We're just being very technical and at the same time very
Yeah.
politically
I
analytic about
think they don't have the numbers to block the
trial.
the trial to approve they don't have the numbers to approve the Bato resolution to make this uh, functionally dismissed, no? So they will fall back on the to block the subpoena of the bank records. That will be the battleground.
That will be a battleground, but my reading justice is actually it could backfire, right? If they didn't have the 13 to begin with, when they push for the impeachment tokang ni Bato, I think after what's happening now, baka the more they'll have a hard time. I mean, okay,
Yes.
let's just spell it out. When Sherwin Gatchalian and JV Ejercito came out and said constitutional duty natin magkaroon ng trial, this is where you see talo na si Bato or he has done something wrong. Because these are senators who are seen as sympathetic or at the very least not hostile to Sara Duterte, right? So for them to come out guns blazing and say, no, 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 constitutional duty natin yan, even if, sabi ni JV, like, we have other priorities, blah, blah, blah. I think that was important. It says that, kasi I'm trying to see what's the logic of Bato publicly going for Tokang unless this is just playing to his base. Di ba? No, parang nagpapakute lang siya sa base niya. Kasi mag-backfire yan eh. Nagba-backfire yan. I don't think he'll go from 11 to 13 after what he did. Probably he'll go from 11 to 9 or 11 to 8 or 11 to 6.
Yeah.
This is a very fluid situation as we speak, Justice Carpio. Um, Now, having said that, let's go to the ERAP case. So, di ba dot daw yung second letter dun sa money trail? Parang
Yeah.
dot naman daw.
Actually, when they opened it, wala. It
Exactly.
was a dud. It was a dud. So they it was a futile act. And they could have allowed it to be opened and nothing would have been discovered.
So
So
what is the lesson, Justice? The lesson is wag bardagulan na itokang yung impeachment kasi nag-backfire yan, di ba? It went down to
yeah,
11-10. Pimentel even resigned as Senate President. It was very dramatic.
yeah, I think the people will really be enraged if they block the subpoena. First of all, I don't think they have the numbers, but if they have the numbers, that will really enrage the people.
So
This
let's
is
talk about,
exactly a repeat of the envelope.
yun nga eh. This is again the money, show me the money trail lang daw ko dyan. I want to ask you justice on this because whenever I raise the point of people power, actually more than a week na, just to be clear, I'm not agitating for chaos or anything. I'm against it. What I'm saying is, wag lang natin hayaan na itokang yung impeachment issue because this is a constitutional obligation and an accountability issue. What are the lessons we should learn, Justice? What is the baby? What is the bathwater from the ERAP situation and also from the Corona situation? Nagkabutan ba kayo, Justice, ni Corona? Parang hindi, no? Nagabutan
No,
ba
no,
kayo?
we were together. Yeah,
You were
nag-abot kami.
together. So, what went right, what went wrong? Because if everything went right, bakit tayo nandito, right? Because many would say, kung talagang effective yung people power, bakit ganito ganyan? Kung yung corona maayos, bakit ganito ganyan? From your read, Justice Carpio, I know this is a bit sensitive, especially when it involves one of your former colleagues. What are the lessons we should learn from history to make sure na this time we get it right, including those people who are gonna protest later and through the week from June 9 to June 11? What is your read, Justice?
Well, from the Estrada impeachment, I think the lesson is do not suppress evidence, because the rule in evidence is evidence suppressed means that uh, if it is revealed, it will be against your interest. It will be prejudicial to you. That's the rule in evidence. If you try to suppress evidence, the implication there is if it is shown, it will be against your interest. So, uh, if, for example, the if the prosecution asks for a subpoena to to get the bank records of the Duterte family, and that is turned down by the majority, that will be terrible, because I think that will enrage the people. It's just like the Estrada impeachment. So I think they should just allow the process to continue. Uh,
And not
the,
block it and not be so brazen. Kaya sabi ko, Bato did the service to the cause. I mean, like,
Yeah,
I mean, to the
I
cause.
think Bato wanted to. I think they realized that that will be the problem. So if they can do a technicality by getting it functionally dismissed, there is you don't reach that point where you ask for a subpoena of the bank records. Because if you ask for the subpoena of the bank records, it's either it's granted or not, and the people will say, grant it. So
Absolutely.
so that it will not reach that point, they do a technicality. But the people got enraged when they did that. They just did it. I was surprised. So many statements came out from law schools, law professors, from everybody.
Davao, including from Davao, including
Yeah.
from Xavier, from Cagayan de Oro, among others. Okay, I want to talk about that, Justice. That's very important because, yes, of course, justice impartial tayo, di ba? Presume innocent si Sara or hindi ba? Like, we're not saying that the bank is gonna show anything. We're just saying you want to make sure hindi ito Mickey Mouse trial. But, Justice, am I right to say, okay, kung ikaw ay you're an incoming senator, dahil magiging senator judge ka, wag mong gawin yung ginagawa nila Bato or yung iba na obvious na yung bias nila. So basically, they're undermining their credibility as senator judges. Gets ko yan. Especially when you're running during elections and you want to win all sides. Pero tapos na elections eh. At ngayon, but yung trial itself is an issue or how the trial will be. So, is it important for progressives and liberals or presumed liberals and to come out and support this trial and support an impartial trial? Sorry, support a robust trial. Would that violate their impartiality as senator judges? The reason I'm asking this is very simple. Kiko has a statement since last week. I'm not sure Bam still has. Correct me if I'm wrong. Kaya I asked kanina, meron bang statement from Bam? I was looking through his Twitter feed, wala pa. Now, Bam's argument is that he's going to be a senator judge, so he has to be neutral on this issue. 100% I agree with him, but diba, this is about whether the trial should happen to begin with. If you have Gatchalian, Ejercito, Ateneo de Davao, Xavier, all of them saying yes, it has to happen, I wonder why shouldn't some people already make a statement by this point?
Well, I think they can make a statement that the process should continue. They have the obligation to proceed with the trial, and that's not being. Uh,
Bias.
you're not prejudging. That's not prejudging,
Not
because you're just
prejudicial.
saying,
Not
yeah,
prejudicial to their senator judge role.
yeah. It's not prejudicial to their neutrality if they say that we have that obligation. We should continue. We should proceed with the trial because that's in the Constitution.
Yeah, please lang, I'm not rage baiting. I'm just trying to like get things clear kasi I expect everyone to come out and at least support a robust trial. Kasi sabi ko, A, there has to be a trial to begin with because constitutional duty, and B, you want a real trial to begin with. Otherwise, it's still the violation of the constitutional duty. Yun lang naman eh. We're not asking for people to come out and say, guilty si Sara, yan na yan. Although, Again, why would Bato try to block this kung hindi naman guilty si Sara? I'm sorry, Justice.
Well,
Like, I cannot really help wondering.
Richard, it might turn out that if you open the bank accounts, there's nothing there, just like in the Estrada impeachment. No, so
It does.
yeah, that could be the case.
Kaya nga, but
We
now
don't
they're making
know.
themselves look guilty, Justice. That's my problem. Kaya hindi ko gets yung Bato strategy. If you wanted to go from 11 to 13, I'm not sure how this help you. If anything, this might have provoked people. Last point, Justice. Um, okay, this is where you have to wear your hat as a legal luminary, although retired, but a legal luminary, Justice. What should the Filipino people do? Ano bang kailangang gawin ng kabataan? Any citizen who cares about accountability? And why is this important for our democracy, Justice? Because, again, I had an argument with Senator JV. Hindi naman, a friendly back and forth na. Kasi argument ni Senator JV is, marami tayong kailangang gawin, priorities, infrastructure, blah, blah, blah. Sabi ko, yeah, you can pass your big, beautiful laws, pero kung wala tayong rule of law at Piatos Republic tayo, investors will never come here, right? Like, where in Asia do you see a vice president not only doing Piatos with their confidential fund, allegedly, but this we saw, all of us saw, openly threatening to assassinate the president, and then she'll get away with everything? The more the investors will not come to the Philippines, we'll look like a banana republic.
Well, we are all for good governance. The reason why we have this problem is because of bad governance. So we are all for good governance, and the number one requirement of good governance under the Constitution is accountability. We demand good governance from our leaders, and the Constitution implements this by saying you are accountable at all times to the people. That's good governance. And we are in the process of accountability here so that we'll have good governance. And so the people must see to it that this process, accountability mechanism, continues and is implemented. Because can you just imagine if, uh, because of legislative calendars, this accountability is extinguished? I mean, they just run down the clock and they're acquitted already. So what will happen? I think we'll have a real revolution, a bloody revolution in the end, if we allow this to happen. So we have a mechanism in the Constitution. Let's follow it, and everybody can agree because that's the Constitution. And okay, I don't I don't I don't begrudge Senator Bato for introducing this resolution because there is an appeal to the Supreme Court. We can go to the Supreme Court and ask the Supreme Court, rule on this. That is the rule of law. But we have to go through that process and complete it because that's important for good governance. This is to have good governance, you must have accountability. And we are in the accountability process now. If our leaders are not accountable to the people, we're dead.
We're dead. And this goes back to what we warned in December. Remember, Justice yung tatatay ni Ronald, when you warned about potential constitutional breakdown and this whole idea of RevGov and all of these extra
Yes,
crazy
because
ideas.
yeah, we have elements in our society. They're both retired or maybe they're incumbent people in the military, police. They're saying that it's useless. Nobody follows the Constitution. The Congress is allocating so much pork barrel to themselves. So they're giving up hope. No, we cannot allow that to happen. And this is the accountability. We have to give hope to the people that there is still accountability. Because if without hope, then we go to RevGov. We go to to a a armed revolution already. We must give hope that there is a legal resolution, a legal solution to this.
Thank you so much, Justice Carpio. We went back again dun sa warning natin. So mukhang prescient yung ating warning last year pa lang na if people do mumbo jumbo and ano, you are playing with fire here. So thank you so much, Justice Carpio, for your love and support. Alam mo, Justice, ang dami mong fans all around the world saying like, Like, first of all, tuwan-tuwa sila na natutuwa ka sa show natin, maliit natin show. Kasi they never imagine you laughing the way you do on the show. I said, this is what I do to everyone. Including si Admiral Ong din, yung kaibigan natin na isa, di ba? Talagang the big three, di ba? With Sir Ronald. So thank you so much, Justice, for doing this. I'm not gonna say na dapat tumakbo ka rin sa 2028, but I'm just saying, there are many people are saying, baka naman. I mean, like if Bam and Kiko did so well, top five sa Senate, why not you at least as a Justice Secretary or at least as a senatorial or something? But okay na, Justice, I'll not say more. Mukhang na-stress na. But I'm just saying, Justice, how much people appreciate what you're doing because you could have easily retreated into the ivory tower. You could have easily just, like, I'm done na, ang dami ko nang ginawa, but you didn't, Justice. And the more you fight for this, the more believe na believe kami sa'yo. Maraming salamat, Justice. Mahal na mahal ka namin. Mabuhay ka and have a lovely day. And looking forward to catching you in person, sana, either on my TV show or for our podcast with Sir Ronald soon. God bless, Justice. Have a lovely day.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard. And thank you to our viewers.
Salamat, sir. God bless.